Hello everyone, welcome to the League of Legends DFS slate breakdown for March the 18th. This video is coming out super duper late, so I apologize for that first of all, and this is going to be a little bit of a speed run, so not as much information and detail that I typically like to try to talk about. So yeah, I mean, we could just kind of get straight into it. It's really worth recapping last night. We can kind of quickly talk over the scores at least. So JDG quickly 2-0'd and TT 2-1 over Team WE. Pretty pleased with these. These are kind of exactly the results that I anticipated. I anticipated JDG to be a much bigger favorite in a large kind of mismatch when it comes to taking on RA. And I think I was actually very pleased with that. My assessment actually ended up coming to fruition like that. We saw that JDG's constant pressure was just a little bit too much for RA to handle. They crumbled pretty quickly in a lot of these fighting scenarios. In TT versus WE, you could argue TT won like all three of these games. The first one was very weird. There was like 3 kills up until like 30 minutes or something. Like it was a weird slow game. Then TT took one bad fight. They ended up losing it. Team WE got like another pick afterwards. They ended up running down bottom lane, getting the win in a 5 kill to 3 kill victory for Team WE. It was a very weird game. I think TT was in control for most of it. They definitely should have won, but that's kind of what's going to happen when you do have these super low-level teams. But again, we were very pleased. We had the plus 165 side of this TT game. Again, I was just pretty surprised that these very two low-level teams were kind of this close in the odds market. We take the underdog shot. They ended up coming through a little bit of positive variance on our side. In the LCK, it's a little tough because afterwards, I came out after my video and my kind of prediction stuff came out. It ended up being the news ended up breaking that Deft was not going to be starting for DRX. Then they ended up losing the first game. Although the bottom lane did matter, it was kind of the whole team lost. It's hard to say that DRX lost because of their bottom lane player, who they subbed in, Taeyun, I believe. It was a tough scenario. I was already kind of invested in DRX. I kind of just kept my shares of DRX. Ended up not working out. When people did reach out and ask what I thought of this, I did tell them that Dom1 was probably the better side. It definitely was. It definitely would have been. When people DM'd me and asked me what I thought, I was telling people, I believe that 2 or 3 people actually asked me, and they said, well, what are you thinking with this news? What do you think about the slate now? And I said, probably going double jungle with Dom1 and JDG makes the most sense. 2 really good spots, probably a little bit underpriced on both of them. That actually ended up being the lineup, the optimal. It sucks when I kind of have a good read on that and I'm not on it. It was just kind of a bad decision on my part to stick with the DRX stuff, but it is what it is. It is what it is. We live and learn, and we move forward. KDF did drop a map to Hanwha. It was a little gross, but I mean, it was a little bit expected. I feel like these teams, like after we get past these top 4 teams in the LCK, it's kind of all random from there. So that's going to be kind of the theme of what we're going with today. Again, kind of late on this, so I don't want to spend time doing the typical odds, look ahead and that kind of stuff. So just going to bring up the odds here. Look at T1 versus Live Sandbox. Makes sense. LSB probably the worst team, maybe bottom 2 at least in the league. Although T1, again, I think this is going to be a spot where we're probably going to have to look for the playoffs or something. I think T1 is still a little fraudulent. This is just definitely not a spot for it at all. I could honestly see LSB winning a game. Probably not the series, though. That seems a little outlandish. So I'll probably take T1. I like them a good bit again. We've seen their pace up and up pretty aggressively. I think Sandbox does have a really high deaths per loss. So I think T1 is definitely very live, but I assume they're going to be mega expensive. Guma 7-8, Oner 7-2, Zeus 6-4, Carrier 6K. So they're a little pricey, but I think they are an option. Definitely going to be wanting them for cash and single entry stuff maybe, but yeah, I think they're in a pretty good spot. I like them overall. KT Rolster, Gen G. I was honestly a little surprised that these odds were this close, if I'm honest. I think there's a clear gap between these top 2 teams and then the rest of the LCK. I thought Gen G was going to be like minus 800 or something. Like, I don't know. This one's a little weird to me. I think this is actually like a parlayable money line thing. If you do find something else that you like in the, like, I don't know, minus 150 area, you could maybe parlay Genji in that up to plus money, maybe. I'm not sure. But I still think Genji probably get the job done here 2-0, unless there is COVID stuff happening. But I think if Genji had COVID stuff continuing, I don't think these odds would be this close even necessarily. So I'll do a quick search on my second monitor while I talk about this. But Genji is much better. I really like Genji a lot. Despite the records indicating something differently. Oh, it looks like we do have something. It looks like Genji, their LCK or their challengers team had some positive COVID tests. I don't know. Maybe something to keep out for. I'm not sure if that would affect the main roster, but nonetheless, yeah, I like Genji a lot. I feel like this is a little weird of a price, if I'm honest. I think Genji should be a much bigger favorite. I think these teams are severely in different classes. And that's just kind of what it comes down to. Probably, again, not a really hot take. I like Genji minus 1.5. I like them to get this 2-0. I think they're in a pretty good spot here. That's just kind of it. That's just kind of what it comes down to for me. Again, we'll look at the how this pertains necessarily to DFS here in a minute, but I think I like this spot. I like the idea, and I think they're viable in that aspect as well. Heading down to the LPL, Top Esports LGD. I mean, this one's just going to be Top Esports probably all day for me. I know I'm definitely a known Top Esports hater. That's definitely something to keep in mind, I guess, kind of. However, it's still just looking a little, what's it called? Sorry, I'm bringing out the lineups here for the LPL, but it's still just a much too big of a gap here. I think LGD are trending to be like the worst team in the league, maybe bottom 2, bottom 3. It's definitely between LGD, WE, and TT in that in that aspect. So it's tough. I think this is probably just Top Esports again, 2-0. Not looking like a good slate really at all. 4 really big favorites here actually. And that kind of transitions me into the fourth game where I try to pull a fast one on you. And I'm actually going with IG here. Again, this one, these odds are kind of a little deceiving, honestly. So we see in the IG series that they're bringing in a different support. I don't believe he's in the player pool. Oh, he is. Good job. DK, good on them for that one. They're bringing in Key, I believe. I heard the pronunciation as for IG. This feels like a kind of whatever move. Lucas wasn't necessarily performing well or poorly, so I think this is fine. Just bring a little bit of upside and maybe introduce a different dynamic to this team. I actually liked a lot of how IG was playing in their most recent series with Uakai back in. I do worry about them swapping that out. Maybe I feel like maybe we're getting a little bit of chemistry going. I don't like how many players IG swap in and out. That's typically something I don't like to see. But I think overall this is just we've seen Weibo continuously kind of slide down. I feel like they've been just kind of continuously looking a little worse and worse. It feels like everybody else is continually caught up to them. And I think this one's just kind of relatively close, much closer than the odds are indicating, at least in my opinion. I think, again, we'd probably have like a Weibo minus 225, minus 250-ish. I know it's tough. IG just are kind of like completely off and on. It feels like it's a different team every time we see them play. But that's honestly kind of could be said the same for Weibo. They've just continuously lost as of late. They are losing to a lot better teams. They lost to, RA's kind of not that great still, I don't think. Lost to Top Esports. Lost to RNG. That was kind of a while ago, though. I just think, kind of continuously looking at this, I just feel like Weibo again are kind of on the decline. IG are a little bit of a unknown entity. Um, so I think this is just kind of like the underdog spot I'm going to take my shot on. Um, we'll talk about the like what teams and stuff we want to target here. I closed the tab too quickly, but for LGD they swapped out their top laner. I believe Fearness is out and they're bringing in Garvey. Doesn't change anything. I think they're kind of both mediocre and lackluster and not a game changer for me at all there. So we'll look at the teams here. I guess quickly, kind of before we get into that, I'll talk about that at the end actually. Looking at the teams, we do have Live Sandbox, T1, and then we have KT Genji. Actually, somewhat exciting LCK teams. And then over in the LPL, we do have Weibo, Top Esports, IG, and who are they playing? LGD. There we go. So again, going to set this to patch 12.4 or maybe 12.5 like they are in the LCK. I just like getting the more recent sample, looking at things how they're trending currently. And for the first time, actually, it feels like in a while, we do actually have a pretty really good kills per minute score here in the LCK. Again, the caveat kind of that we have here is the game time situation. So T1 and Sandbox both are up there in kills per minute, looking like LCK or LPL levels. But again, the average game time there is about 30 minutes. They're averaging about 0.85, so that's about 4 kills per minute or something, or total combined kills. So the fact that T1 is probably going to roll them over pretty quickly, win this game rather quickly. Looks like Live Sandbox's average game time is less than 30 minutes, and they're 0-8, so they're getting rolled and stomped pretty quickly. T1 are hyper aggressive, but this is going to be a completely one-sided matchup. There is a real argument here that T1, you could probably try to avoid them because they win too quickly. We saw it with JDG, I think against WE maybe, or JDG against someone recently, where it was just really, really, really one-sided, and they ended up kind of not even scoring that well because of it. I think this can be a situation where T1 win too quickly, too dominantly. They're not going to have to group up team fight for these big objectives because the fights might just be decided before that even happens. So that's a concern. I'm still just going to take the shot there with T1 just because of the hyper aggression that we see. We see Live Sandbox giving up a lot of deaths. There's just potential there. When it comes to KT Genji, this one I still think is a little interesting. I think when you consider Genji do have their full complement of weapons back, I believe in their most recent match, I think they had everyone. Doran, Peanut, Chovy, Ruler the Hens. Am I crazy? Yeah, okay. I think they all played recently. I think they're in a good spot here as well. We see KT Rolster having a decent kills per minute. Their games do go a little bit longer. So does Genji's. But I think that does kind of balance out and even out. And I do think there is some possibility for Genji here. They're still probably like my least favorite option, but I might get a little bit of a sprinkle in of them anyway. Then looking over to the LPL, the thing that we have in the LPL is these games get decided so quickly. The average game time is around 30 minutes here in both of these series. Combined kills per minute pretty high. They do get, pretty aggressive. We do get some brawls in the LPL. That's kind of like the difference maker and caveat here, and something I didn't realize for too long, and something I'm trying to continue to, I guess, preach for a little bit here. It's just kind of simple math. If their combined kills per minute is higher, but the minute there's just less minutes of the game, the average game time is lower, then it's going to kind of equal out a little bit both sides. When we look at KT versus Genji, the average game time here is going to be about 34 to 35 minutes. That's an extra 5 minutes. So when your combined kills per minute is like 0.10 lower, the extra 5 minutes is going to be about half of a kill. So it's not a lot, but it does make a difference there when you're trying to look at these things. So I mean, when our margin of when our margin of like between the top and low end of like activity here, when it is like on the low end maybe like 22 23 kills, and on the high end we're looking at maybe 25 ish. When you're looking at half a kill, that does make up a good amount. That's a good chunk there. So it is a good kind of piece to sort of remember and to remember to look at. But nothing really standing out to me at all. Looks like LGD, looking at, they're getting a lot of deaths here again in these 13 games. Top esports probably going to be a solid option. I don't know. I'm not sure where people are going to go. I do think, again, we do have a lot of big favorites here. T1 minus 2,000, Top Esports minus 750, Gen G minus 375, even Weibo minus 350 is the smallest favorite on the slate. So, yeah, it's going to be tough to kind of parse through this stuff. But I think for out of all these underdogs, I don't love it necessarily. I could definitely see all the four favorites coming through here. It would create a boring slate. But I think out of all of them, I think IG does have a real shot here. I think this is going to be a somewhat close matchup, and I think IG just have a good shot of winning this series. So I'm just going to take my shot on the team I do believe has a good chance to win the series. So that's going to be my underdog pick, is going with IG over Weibo. I mean, it's probably going to be where a lot of people go. This is probably going to be the most popular underdog pairing, I'd have to imagine. But I don't know. I just kind of don't think about that stuff that often. As I write in these team names here, so we can get the player information. Now that we know that, I mean, I feel like Top Esports is probably in the best spot. Then maybe T1, then probably IG, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of close between them all. So we'll look at everything here. Look at just kind of the most recent two patches, of course, as we did with the other sample. Let's make sure. Yep, we do have all the teams here. Yep. So when we look at kill participation, again, I'd say this every time, but I like to look at the groupings, seeing if anybody's kind of sticking out above everyone else. Looks like for IG, they do have some like swapping names and stuff here to look out for. Lucas isn't playing, but we see he's usually pretty involved. Yuakai playing there. Shun. I guess Mole there, but he, of course, was subbed out as well. So looks like it's just kind of Yuakai and Shun. At the top, we do have Knight, Chovy there as well. So getting pretty heavy in mids, because it's looking like, Lucas not playing. So it'd be Knight, Yuakai, Shun, Chovy, then Carrier, Peanut. So 3 out of the top 4 players in kill participation are mid laners. Probably something to keep an eye out on. Carria's really crazy. Gumayushi's numbers are even rising from there. Again, really tough for Faker and Zeus. Wanners is doing pretty well as well. When I do get to T1 stacks, I just leave off Faker and Zeus. Their numbers are just so bad. Like, I can't really see them improving. Yeah, I still think there is some merit in playing Faker. He is really cheap on this slate. There is definitely some upside and ability there, but you can't argue with the 47% kill participation. Like, my cutoff is typically 60, so when he's sub 50, that is a really, really tough sell. And I do think he does have some kill upside. He should, in theory, be involved more. I don't know. It's just tough there. Yeah, I mean, Gen G overall towards the bottom, except for Chovy and Peanut. That seems to be a common thing here, where we have the mid and jungle duos. I guess actually when we do look for the top esports thing, we do have Knight, Jackie Love, Mark, and Tien all above the 66%. That's really, really solid. I think T1 is looking really, really strong as an option. They were probably one of the ones I was looking before, or sorry, TES. I don't know if I said T1, but Knight, Jackie Love, Mark, Tien, all looking good in these numbers. So I'm liking that spot as well. Not a hot take, but when you pair them up with IG, probably going to be a hot take. Yeah, Gen G's numbers are pretty low overall. IG are kind of spread apart. Looks like Zika's is low. Wink is a little low. I mean, 65 is fine for Wink there. And then we kind of just pick our spots and pick our parts with T1 and go from there. Now look quickly, kind of position by position to have an idea. When it comes to top laners, there isn't much separating anyone, but it looks like Wayward is kind of the golden goose amongst them. Highest kill participation, much higher kill share, looking a lot better in that department. Junglers, everyone's looking fine, just kind of whoever you're stacking with, you probably want to get them in. For mid laners, again, we mentioned Knight, Uakai, Chovy off the top. Faker's so much worse there, but maybe if Faker's like the unowned piece of T1, you could maybe make a case. I'm not sure. It's hard to get there with those numbers, and you do have the other options available. So, then down to ADCs, looking like all of them are relatively similar. About a 7% gap in kill participation, similar numbers for kill share. It's just kind of coming down to, again, whatever your stack you're leaning with in that department. For supports, Lucas was at the top, but he's not playing. I'd imagine they would have something similar there with Key. But you just kind of never know. So cautiously put him in the top parts. But it kind of overall looks like, again, Keria very strong, Mark very strong. Lehens is a little lower than everyone. So I think if I'm kind of putting them into this mold, I would probably have Keria, Mark, then then Key, then Lehens. Just based off of this, it's looking really tough for the Gen G guys outside of Peanut and outside of Chovy. So maybe they're more of a secondary stack option. But yeah, I think that's probably just going to be it for me today. Do want to try to get this video out for people so they can use the information and create their lineups, hopefully in time. Sorry again for being late on it. You know, life gets busy sometimes. I'm sure you guys all understand. This is a hobby thing, so yeah, we have a pretty good idea of the teams that we like. Taking our underdog shot here with IG. That is what I was going to mention earlier. This is probably one where I'm probably going to go a little bit lighter on the entry fees compared to a normal night. I mean, it's hard for me to see any favorite other than IG. So if I'm pairing up all these other favorites like Top Esports, like T1 with Invictus Gaming, and then IG lose, like all of my eggs are going to be in the IG basket. So if they lose, I don't want to be too overly exposed in that aspect. So that's just kind of my approach on it. Yeah, I think that'll be it for me today. Hopefully you guys got some use out of this information and stuff we talked about. So yeah, best of luck to you all tonight, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.